Daf Yomi Tractate of Metzia, page 25a, top of the page with the words Shlosha mat be'oz ze al gav ze. 3 coins stacked one atop another. Okay, it's part of the Mishnah, so maybe it's a good idea to start from the bottom of 24b. We had a Mishnah, a new Mishnah, bottom line of 24b, which is ve'elo chachayev lahachriz. And for these found items, one is obligated to proclaim his find. If one found produce inside a vessel, or a vessel by itself, coins inside a pouch, or a pouch by itself, piles of produce, piles of coins. Okay, now we're on the top of 25a. 3 coins stacked one on top of another, bundles of grain in a secluded area, loaves of a homemaker, as each shapes his loaves in his own unique manner, wool fleeces that are taken from the house of a craftsman, and each craftsman possesses the wool in his own unique manner, jugs of wine or jugs of oil. If one finds any of these, he is obligated to proclaim his find. And the Gemara says, the Gemara infers from the Mishnah, the reason one is obligated to proclaim his find is that he found produce inside the vessel, or coins inside the pouch. But if he found a vessel and produce was before it, or if he found a pouch and coins were before it, the produce and coins belong to him. The Gemara comments, we learn from this Mishnah by inference that which the sages taught explicitly in a Braita. If one found a vessel and produce was before it, or if one found a pouch and coins were before it, the produce and coins, belong to him. If some of the produce is in the vessel and some of the produce is on the ground, or if some of the coins are inside the pouch and some of them are on the ground, one is obligated to proclaim his find. And the Gemara raises a contradiction from another Braita. If one found an item on which there is no distinguishing mark, alongside an item on which there is a distinguishing mark, he is obligated to proclaim that he found both. If the owner of the item with the distinguished mark came and took his item, but did not claim ownership of the other item, the other person who found the items acquires the item on which there is no distinguishing mark. This halakha should also apply when one finds a vessel on which there is a distinguishing mark and produce on which there is no distinguishing mark. The Gemara cites several possible resolutions to this contradiction. Razvid said that this is not difficult. This Braita, where the finder is obligated to proclaim his finding of both vessel and the produce, is referring to a container and flax. Since the flax fibers are intertwined, when part of the flax falls out of the container, all the flax would fall out. Therefore, the fact that the flax is completely outside the container is not an indication that it was never in the container. That Mishnah, from which it is inferred that produce found outside the vessel belongs to the finder, is referring to a basket and produce. Had the produce fallen out of the basket, presumably some produce would remain in the basket because the individual units of produce are not connected. Therefore, the fact that no produce was found in the basket indicates that the produce did not fall out of the basket. Rav Papa said both this ruling and that ruling are referring to a basket and produce, and nevertheless it is not difficult. This Braita, where the finder is obligated to proclaim his finding of the produce found outside the vessel, is referring to a case where some produce remains in the basket. That Mishnah, from which is inferred that produce found outside the vessel belongs to the finder, is referring to a case where no produce remains in the basket. And if you wish, say instead, both this ruling and that ruling are referring to a case where no produce remains in the basket, and nevertheless it is not difficult. This Braita, where the finder is obligated to proclaim his finding of the produce found outside the empty vessel, is referring to a case where the mouth of the basket is facing the produce, indicating that the produce fell from it. That Mishnah from which it is inferred that the produce found outside the vessel belongs to the finder is referring to a case where the mouth of the basket is not facing the produce. And if you wish, say, instead, both this ruling and that ruling are referring to a case where the mouth of the basket is facing the produce, and nevertheless it is not difficult. That Mishnah from which it is inferred that produce found outside the vessel belongs to the finder is referring to a case where the empty basket has a rim. Had the produce fallen out of the basket, the rim would have prevented some of the produce from falling. This Braita, where the finder is obligated to proclaim the produce found outside the empty vessel, is referring to a case where the basket has no rim, and therefore the produce in its entirety could have fallen from the basket. I think we'll do part 1. Stop here.